Former NFL running back Cedric Benson, along with the passenger who hasn't been identified at the time of me recording this video, both tragically passed away in a motorcycle accident on the night of August 17, 2019. This video is meant as a tribute to Cedric's life, with a focus on his football career. If you're new here, I've done tons of these types of videos, and while I don't shy away from the facts, these never come from a place of negativity. As always, I'll do my best to do justice to said story while being as respectful as possible. Again, the focus of this video is not to judge Cedric Benson, the ex-football player. It's to empathize with Cedric Benson, the man. A man who, like the rest of us, had his flaws, but also had things about him that made him special. This is what happened to Cedric Benson. Rest in peace, King. Cue the wang. Cedric Myron Benson was born in Midland, Texas, and played his high school ball at Robert E. Lee High School. I don't think I need to go off on a tangent to illustrate how competitive and serious high school football is taken in this state. But if you start to look up the nation's largest or most expensive high school stadiums, you're gonna notice a certain trend. It's real out here. The atmosphere is smoldering, and in that atmosphere, Cedric Benson led his high school squad to 3 straight 5A Texas state titles, the first time that had ever been done. And he showed up big in all the title games. Check it out, he averaged 5 touchdowns per championship game, 15 touchdowns total in 3 state championships, bro. He was on magazine covers, the whole 9. And he finished his career as the state's 4th all-time leading rusher, rushing for a total of 8,423 yards, a feat that undoubtedly took a little bit of tread off the young running back's tires. This was evident due to the fact that Cedric passed on an opportunity to play in a National High School Football All-Star game, which was nationally televised. Here's a quote: "I just can't. I'm just too tired, man. It's been a long trip." Ced had been the starter since his sophomore year, and even as a high school kid, all those carries seemed to be taking their toll. And the carries themselves weren't the only thing that was heavy. We talked about the Texas atmosphere a little bit and how difficult it can be to be a high school football star in this state. To further illustrate that fact, Ced recalled once having to skip a high school pep rally after receiving death threats before a big game. That is insane. What a lot of people don't know is that Ced was also a baseball player who was drafted in the 12th round, straight out of high school in 2001 by the LA Dodgers. He played in their summer league, and with 25 at-bats, he had 5 hits, 3 doubles, 2 triples, resulting in 2 RBIs. Where he was really at home, though, was the football field. So the 5-star Texas recruit, of course, decided to play his college ball for the Texas Longhorns. At 5'11", 200 pounds, he walked in and was the day 1 starter, and the freshman didn't disappoint. Over 1,000 yards rushing with a 4.7 yards per carry average and 12 touchdowns. This is in his first college season. Along with wide receiver Roy Williams and defenders like Ahmad Brooks and Quentin Jammer, Ced helped lead the team to an 11-2 record. Unfortunately, after getting all the way up to 3rd in the polls, they fell to Colorado in the Big 12 championship game. There was more from Ced and the Longhorns in the following season. 1,300 yards for Ced, 12 touchdowns, 11-2 record for the team. 2003, Ced's junior year, was easily his most trying season of his college career. For starters, his team had their worst record during his 4-year career, 10-3. I know if that's your worst record, you're doing pretty damn good, but still, that was his worst record. His real issues were off the field. Ced had gotten arrested the prior year for marijuana possession, but had posted the $1,300 bond and kept it moving. This seemed to catch all the coaches off guard, but it wouldn't be the last time he got into this type of trouble. In 2003, Ced was arrested after attending one of those college parties. You know the ones, drugs, alcohol everywhere, one of those. And eventually, the cops was there as well. And as fate would have it, Ced was arrested on marijuana possession. Fortunately, the charges were dropped a few days later when he was drug tested and didn't have anything in his system. But later that same year, he was arrested again on criminal trespassing charges. Now here's what happened with that situation. First off, he spent $15,000 on a plasma TV, and yeah, I used to sell TVs. Plasma TVs used to cost that much. I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's what they used to cost. Now, Ced had gotten a $100,000 bonus from the Dodgers. So, you know, he had a little bit of bread and spent some of it on the TV. One day, Ced comes back to his room, his TV is gone. Somebody stole a $15,000 TV. So word started to travel, and eventually Ced starts to hear rumors about who might have his TV. So what you think he did next? He kicked in the door to that person's apartment. His intentions to take his TV back. Problem was, the TV wasn't there, but soon after, the police were. Sentenced to 8 days in jail, but he ended up not serving it due to the time he spent in jail on the day he was arrested, good behavior, etc., etc. And he was suspended for 1 game, but that didn't stop Ced from rushing for his customary 1,300 yards. And he actually had his highest collegiate touchdown total that season with 21. After that string of trouble, people really began comparing Cedric to another Texas running back, Ricky Williams. They were similar size, had similar running styles, both were minor league baseball players, both had dreads, and now both have been connected with marijuana. Ced would eventually even chop the locks, all in an attempt to distance himself from the Ricky Williams comparison. I really hate the stigma that comes along with dreadlocks, but I do understand he hadn't been drafted yet, and storytelling, of course I know, storytelling is very important in this country and really in the world. And one of the most effective ways of conveying a story that I've grown up or I've turned a corner is by cutting your hair. Cedric's senior season was easily his best. He seemed refocused and ready to stake his claim as the top running back in his class. He not only had his highest rushing total of his career, but also had his highest yards per carry average. 1,800 yards with a 5.6 yards per carry average. I always like to see yardage go up and average go up. Just a quick way to gauge whether he was more effective or if he was just getting way more carries than he got before. In this case, you could clearly see he was a lot more effective. 19 touchdowns, once again, that's just what he does. He won the Doak Walker Running Back Award and was the AT&T ESPN All-American Player of the Year. Now, Ced elected not to work out at the NFL Combine. That's something you'll see a lot from guys who are smart, who've had really great college careers, but might not be the best in t-shirt and short. You know, some guys really don't have the college production, but they can run a 4.3. Ced was the opposite of that. But at his pro day, he was able to run a 4.5, which when coupled with his college production, you know, it was a no-brainer at that point. He's a top 5 player. He was drafted 4th overall by the Chicago Bears, and things did not go smoothly, to say the least. For starters, he missed his first NFL training camp. He ended up holding out for over a month before inking a 5-year, $35 million deal, and some weird reports came out surrounding this whole situation. For one, it was reported by Jay Glazer that some teammates in drills tried to intentionally injure this man after his holdout. Obviously, these guys came out and denied that, but there's absolutely no doubt there was a ton of friction from day one between Cedric Benson and a lot of his Bears teammates, especially veterans. This is one of those weird things that you do sometimes see in football. We saw it with the Steelers and the Le'Veon Bell situation. You'd think that the veterans of all people would understand kind of how the league works and how the business side of it works, how the team will cut you at the drop of a hat, will trade you at the drop of a hat, and will lowball you if you let them. These are all facts, and I'm not angry with the teams. I understand that's just how you do business, but the player has the right to also do good business, or at least attempt to. And then generally you guys meet somewhere in the middle. That's how business is done. That's a tangent. Whatever, let's move on. So the year before Ced was drafted, the Bears went into free agency and picked up another former first-round running back, Thomas Jones. At that point, Thomas was a player whose career hadn't really panned out the way he had hoped. But in 2004, that first year in Chicago, Thomas rushed for just under 1,000 yards, averaged 4 yards per carry, scored 7 touchdowns, and was well liked by teammates, coaches, and embraced by the fans. Then the very next year, they drafted Ced. Friction. Due in large part to this, Cedric Benson, a 5-star recruit, a Texas legend, we talking high school and college, the 4th overall pick in the draft, only got 67 carries during his rookie season. As you might imagine, Thomas Jones was just getting his career on track, so he's doing his thing, and here comes Ced trying to take his job. For Ced, he's always been the man, and now here's this guy in front of him taking all the reps, being liked by teammates, fans, and the coaches. this is an issue. If the Bears were always planning on those guys being a two-headed monster, they either didn't sell it well or the guys just never bought in, one of the two. But when Ced was asked if he and Thomas Jones were friends, he frankly answered no. He took some heat for that, obviously, and he compared it to co-workers at any job. It was like, always have to be friends with your co-workers to be able to work together, which is true. Was there a better way to answer that question? Of course, but clearly there was a lot of frustration there. He was a young guy, and that's how it came out. Here's another quote from Ced during that time. The NFL is not like high school or college, but the best players don't always get on the field. This was Ced trying to deal with his frustration, and it wasn't doing him any favors as far as the locker room and his teammates and the fans, or it wasn't helping the situation at all. He's on record saying that he was never happy during his time with the Bears, and the Bears never seemed happy with him. Many Chicago fans even consider him a bust, and they felt they never got value for that 4th overall pick. When you look back at Ced's time in Chicago, making a Super Bowl appearance sounds nice until you consider the fact that he ended up fumbling on his first carry and was injured and knocked out of the game on his second carry. When asked to recall his friends on that team during an interview after he'd retired, he struggled to remember. He oddly didn't remember his first 100-yard game. He didn't remember the player who injured him in the Super Bowl. These are things that a player typically would not forget. This could honestly just be selective amnesia, as again, these were not happy times for Ced in his life. This might just be stuff he doesn't want to remember, so he chooses not to. That's entirely possible. But also, given the fact that he's been a bell cow running back since a sophomore in high school, you'd be fooling yourself if you didn't at least consider the fact that CTE may have played a part. We don't know that. That's speculation. I'm just saying we do have to consider the possibility. During that same post-career interview, Ced would give a lot of insight as to why he felt things went bad in Chicago from the jump. He says during the draft, minutes before the Bears ended up picking him, they gave him a call and tried to get him to agree to a deal over the phone before they picked him. He said that he was told that the Bears would not take him if he didn't agree to this deal that he and his agent considered a lowball offer before he was even drafted. And he was like, cool, don't draft me. He was like, I'd rather go where I'm valued and not go here where they're trying to manipulate me and basically pressure me into a deal before they even pick me. Smart people don't like to be manipulated, and that's what he felt like that was. Now the Bears end up drafting him anyway, despite the fact that he already said, no, I'm not gonna sign that offer, and they just picked up a running back the year before. So it got off to a bad start, and that's probably why this man didn't look too thrilled if you go back and look at a lot of these draft pictures. And when you take all of that into consideration, that could easily be what set this entire just underwhelming saga into motion. And if that's true, it makes a lot of sense. So between feeling he was played and manipulated by the franchise that drafted him, and then not being welcomed in by his teammates, the media, or the fans, and then also not getting an opportunity to really even show what he can do and prove himself, as he was stuck behind another really good running back, you could see where this would be unbelievably frustrating. And as a side note, he and Thomas Jones did have a big rivalry, but they did end up getting cool later in their careers once they were both on separate teams. It wasn't actual beef, just competitiveness from two guys fighting for a job, you know what I'm saying? Going into the 2007 season, Thomas Jones was traded, making Cedric the lead back. The trade was mostly because if you Thomas Jones and your backup is making more money than you, then you want to make more money. The Bears weren't going to do that. They traded him. Fans were not happy about the move, and unfortunately, Ced wasn't able to do much to change their minds. The O-line was in flux, the quarterback situation was all over the place, and Ced was just never really able to get going. He only ran for 100 yards in one game that entire season and was injured about a third of the way through, sustaining an ankle injury that would not only end his season, but end his career as a Chicago Bear. He finished the 2007 season with 674 yards through 11 games, with the lowest yards per carry average of his career, 3.4. After ending the season with an injury, Ced didn't really help his situation. He was arrested for allegedly operating a boat while intoxicated and resisting arrest. The very next month, a few weeks later, Ced was arrested again on similar charges, this time driving while intoxicated. To compound issues, the Bears turned around and drafted Matt Forte. You can see where this is leading to. Let's go ahead and get to that. The Bears released Ced. Now, to be clear, he wasn't indicted on either of those arrests, so he was cleared to play the next season, and then my squad, the Cincinnati Bengals, scooped him up in free agency. I know his time in Chicago didn't go great, but Ced was anything but a bust for us. In 2009, his first year as a full-time starter, he had his first career 1,000-yard season as a Cincinnati Bengal. I'm proud to say that, you see? Also, he averaged 4.2 yards per carry that season, scored 6 touchdowns. Then he ended up getting his revenge versus the Bears with just a monster game, bro. 189 yards, averaging 5 yards per carry with the touchdown. And we won that game 45-10. Thrashed them. Ced would later state that he tried not to be vengeful or angry, but emotions did come into play. And you gotta understand that. I mean, that had to feel pretty damn good. Ced helped lead us to win the AFC North that year and make the playoffs. We, of course, lost in the first round because that's kind of what we do. But that was not on Ced. He showed up. He rushed for 169 yards and scored a touchdown in our playoff loss. From 2009 through the 2011 season, Ced would have 3 straight years of over 1,000 yards rushing, finally being able to truly show his ability at the NFL level. He was also instrumental in helping our team transition from the Carson Palmer era into the Andy Dalton era. He was a reliable veteran force on the offense with a rookie QB in Andy and a rookie wide receiver in AJ Green. Without him, those guys likely can't say that they made the playoffs during their rookie year. But that said, Cedric did continue to get into scrapes off the field. He was arrested in 2010 for allegedly punching a bartender, and again in 2011 for getting into a fight with a family member. This eventually led to the Bengals not re-signing Ced. He ended up playing 5 games during the 2012 season with Green Bay before effectively retiring from football. Post-football and even during, Ced spoke a lot about trying to find himself. He seemed to struggle with who he was outside of being an NFL running back. His search for self led him into a variety of situations, some good, some bad. And he got into his fair share of trouble back in Austin, Texas, but he also gave back to the city on several occasions. In 2018, when a series of explosives were delivered via packages, taking 2 lives and injuring 5 more and ruining several homes, Ced teamed up with Roman Lopez Real Estate through his foundation to help restore damage done to some of the properties. He also volunteered at after-school programs working with kids in the area, and he didn't go in as an NFL running back. He just went in as Ced, and the kids were so young that they didn't even know who he was, but he just spent time there and tried to impact them positively. And you gotta remember, just because somebody get in trouble with the law or might have like a drinking issue, don't make them a bad human. At the core of him, Ced was a good dude. He just had some issues that he was trying to deal with. Unfortunately, in the past few years, Ced would have several more DUI arrests, a consistent pattern of behavior throughout his adult life. He seemed to be struggling with something lingering in the back of his mind since maybe high school, and the constant intoxication usually points to a person struggling to deal with negative emotions of some sort. And I'm not a psychologist, I'm just speaking from experience. Following Ced's most recent 2018 arrest, he was asked to count backwards from 10. He said it was impossible due to all the hits he had received as a football player. Now, make no mistake, he was legitimately intoxicated, but due to his history and how long he played the sport at a position that is unbelievably tough on the body and leads to a ton of helmet-to-helmet contact, I think this kind of offhand remark should be taken seriously. I mean, there's a really good chance that CTE could have played a role in some of Ced's issues. Again, that's speculation, we don't know, maybe he just threw it out there as a joke trying to get out of a ticket, but when you consider the fact that he was a lead back since he was a sophomore in high school, I don't see how you can just write that off and not at least consider it. Today we remember Cedric Benson for his best quality, and no matter how you slice it, at the end of the day, he's a Texas football legend. As a Bengals fan, I'm definitely grateful for everything he did for our organization, and I'm sure that Bears fans will put all the drama behind them and show some love to a man who's no longer with us. Love goes out to Ced's family and the family of the passenger. May they rest in peace. That's all I got for y'all today. My name is Flimlow Raps. I'm gonna let you next time, fellas. One.
Yeah, I'm no quitter, 'cause I'ma go get